And now officially, hi everyone, and welcome to the last and fifth workshop for the Generative AI for Business Process Hackathon workshop week. My name is Madeline, as you know, and if you have not registered for the hackathon itself, please go and do so ASAP on the Hackathon Challenge page. I'll link it in the chat here for you as well. Be mindful that you will need to register with a profile, then register with a project submission, add your team members to that submission, and have a project with 2 to 5 people. So you can't participate alone. You need at least 2. So please make sure of that. Also, go and watch my 17-minute practicalities video on the landing page for the hackathon, where I tell you how you can apply and what's the team selection criteria for your project, what's the schedule, where do you need to be and when, and so on, so that you can take all of those into consideration when you're drafting your project idea, since, as you know, only the top 15 teams can be elected to actually join the hackathon. If you haven't watched the first 4 workshop videos, they're all recorded and saved under the schedule part of the hackathon page, and under the agenda for each workshop day is also the recording for that day. So check those out as well. Today, we're gonna hear Aleksi's last session about best practicalities and future trends for Gen AI. But before that, I want to welcome Tommi Koirikivi, Principal Design, who has a lot of interesting stories about utilizing LLM and generative systems. And he will kick things off by telling you a bit of his experiences and give you some inspiration for your own projects. Tommi, the stage is yours.
Thank you, and hello everyone. Just a quick moment, I will share my screen. And shout out when you see something.
Loud and clear.
Yes, great. So building new services with generative AI. Maybe first a little bit about my background. I'm a designer. I've always been designer, but I've always been doing also some development work also. So I'm pretty familiar with front end stuff, some back end stuff also, and consulting for the last 10 years. I'm really building new services and products for our clients. I'm working in consultancy. It's Nitor. So maybe a few mandatory slides also about from this side. So Nitor in numbers is we have roughly 300 consultants, and we have been 12 years in a row the #1 in customer satisfaction in IT sector in Finland, and we have been few times also selected as a best place to work in Finland. And we help our clients in many different kind of like areas, from technical aspects to design and from agile to analytics, and nowadays also a lot of AI LLM stuff too. And we work with many big and small companies in Finland and abroad. And now when we kind of like have the mandatory from the way, I'd like to first take a few moments to talk about how kind of like these new tools have been affecting my kind of like job and role, and how I think that the industry will kind of like move forward from here. Maybe like the first is kind of like nowadays I can really easily to generate really quick prototypes for usability testing when we build something new. For example, like now you can do this kind of like one prompt prototypes in a way that you can then go for end user testing really soon. And these prototypes can be like really some of the high quality front end prototypes. Earlier, you would have to kind of like invest fair amount of time to do it in that way. And now also when we design new things, there's kind of like this concept of automation. How do we design automation? Because everything what we do, there is at the receiving end, there is this kind of like a user that is always having this kind of like different steps what they will have to do. And now with these kind of like new tools, we can really think about like how do we remove some steps completely and how these things can go faster. And then as an individual, learning is really kind of like exponential thing here also, because now when we do new things, we can use these tools also to educate ourselves also from different perspectives. And it kind of like comes as a really nice side effect here. I guess you have also maybe like seen and realized it also yourself that like when you have some prompt, you get new perspectives, even if you don't ask. But then you can also have the prompts formalized in a way that the output is always something that it will kind of like teach you from different perspectives. So you can utilize it also kind of like as a tutor also. And really cool thing is also like from designer perspective here is that like I can do like anything that's in my mind nowadays because I have like these really powerful tools. I can like really quickly do something that I can just think, if you will. And simply nowadays, yeah, these tools enables me to do much more with much less time. And about the automation stuff, design perspective, like this is kind of like summarize it like this is the current day, but when we use these new tools, we can decrease the steps to complete the task, and then the time kind of like also gets shorter. So I think like everyone wins. And how I kind of like mainly utilize these tools nowadays is that for everything development related, I use a lot of this cursor.so tool. It's a coding ID. It's a fork from Visual Studio Code. So if you use that, you already know this tool. And everything else, I kind of like use ChatGPT, either their own service or maybe nowadays it's more about OpenAI's APIs instead of like the actual chat interface. And how I use that nowadays more is like I can really quickly generate some mockup data for my Figma layouts if I'm doing some design. I can now ask, for example, like, hey, give me this JSON that has these key values, and then I can populate these to my layout. So the actual design layouts will be much more real life than ever before, because like I don't have to use any kind of like lorem ipsum anymore. Then I use a lot of like Python scripts to improve my local workflow. Whatever kind of like I need to do any repetitive tasks. It's like really easy now to just like automate your own workflow. And also I make a lot of scripts to generate sample content in huge quantities. And one example for this is some time back, for example, I was doing this new project that I wanted to test AI's capabilities to summarize conversations in a very specific topic and with a very specific metadata. I didn't have that content at all, but I first made a script that generated me a really huge quantities of these like example conversations with specific metadata. And then I was able to like make a feature that summarizes those conversations. And from this, I was able to calculate the business value and the business effect of like how much does it cost to use these kind of like features. So we quickly kind of like had a really good idea whether this is kind of like feasible to do at all, because kind of like the cost effect. And few concrete case examples how I have been using these new tools is this virheetkartalle.com service, and it translates like errors or fines on map, and it illustrates parking tickets fined in Helsinki city region in last year. And this is kind of like almost completely built just by prompts. Designer perspective again, it's really cool how I can like talk and describe an interaction I wanna achieve, and then I just say that I want the output to be in a kind of like coding format, so I can iterate like really easily. If anyone know, it's built in a Mapbox API or Mapbox mapping service and Vue.js framework. I chose these because I'm really familiar with these ones, so it kind of like if there would have been any issues, I would have been able to debug those. And the service is kind of like it illustrates where it's kind of like heat map thingy in which streets you have more tickets than the others, and here's kind of like street names and how many tickets has been filed, and when you click one of these you will get this kind of like inside view how the distribution goes between different fine types or classifications. And how this was kind of like in a more concrete base build was that I first gave. Oh, this is actually built in like 7 months ago, 8 months ago, really early in a year, or beginning of this year. I think like ChatGPT 4 was just out at that moment, and I kind of like first designed this data structure that I wanted to use with the application, and I kind of like fed this as a sample the ChatGPT that hey, like this is kind of like what I want you to output later on. And then I had from a public source, I did have the parking tickets and street addresses types and classifications for the fines ticket types. And I then gave an example of that to ChatGPT, like, hey, like here's an example of the source data, and I kind of like prompted that later you will output this like my sample data, and then I did have a separate file for geocoding because I needed a geocoding for the street names so that Mapbox can have this interactivity that when I click a street name, it will kind of like zoom in there. So I did give also a separate file in a way that, hey, like here's my coordinates that you will also need. So I had given these three different like sample files, and then I later then like asked that like, hey, now give me a Python script that combines the source data address with geocode addresses and then output the JSON that is like my sample JSON. And with this instruction, I actually kind of like I combined these both files, and the output was then this kind of like what I really wanted the application data structure to be. And then, for example, describing the interactivity in a form of prompts that like, hey, I want to highlight the same street names which are in my data. Now create a color scheme that shows the variance based on the occurrence. And I mean, I guess you get the deal. So then it was kind of like more or less copy pasting from the ChatGPT window. Yeah, and this is a more recent one. I made this kind of like a UI workout.com site, and this is by approach. This is more complicated and more interesting than the previous one. But this is 99 AI generated design challenges for developers and designers, and it's done with Nuxt.js content version 2 and LangChain. If you're not familiar with LangChain, I highly recommend that you will kind of like from anything from this, you will check out the LangChain. It's the most awesome thing at this moment. Yeah, so how this kind of like works is that I did create a script that generates website content or these design challenges in huge quantities. There is literally like 99 design challenges where you can practice your skills, and you have some sample content also. And how these are generated are kind of like in this way that I have here LangChain. I have two different versions actually using the LangChain. One is the Python and then the JS one. With the Python, when I'm generating all of the content there, and how that happens is that this is like in a nutshell. I have 3 different categories. I have a UI type, target users, and then product type. And then I randomly combine different attributes from here, like application, working professionals, and let's say news portal. And when those 3 are like randomly selected, I will pass these to a prompt template. And then the prompt template is kind of like a then sent to OpenAI. And the AB then returns me JSON. And that JSON I'm populating then into a website. That's kind of like in a nutshell. And this is kind of like you can see on the left side here, I have my script running and it generating the challenges, and the challenges are appearing here on my local environment. Yeah, this is just a video mockup. But yeah, now you can see that, yeah, it did generate, and I think, yeah, I did show also here, so yeah. You can also try this one. Oh yeah, it's actually really nice that there's kind of like this sample content research methods, research questions that you could also like ask. I did make this tool also in a way that it's not always random, but you can enter your own kind of like questions in there, and you can then generate your own design challenge there. And if you go to a create section, you can try it yourself there. Yeah, I don't have anything else to that. This was actually much faster than I thought.
But super interesting. Thank you, Tommi. While we have Tommi here, any questions from the listeners on the presentation or any of the tools that Tommi mentioned? Feel free to unmute or write in the chat. He's here to answer for a bit more time.
Yes, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
It's about more about hackathon rules. It should be the team, all of the team inside Riyadh, or can be outside Riyadh.
Yeah, I can take this one. You can be from outside of Riyadh, but the hackathon will be physically in Riyadh. So you will need to be able to be in Riyadh for the duration of the hackathon.
So the whole team should be attending in Riyadh?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. If we don't have any questions for Tommi now, yes,
yeah,
Alex,
if we don't have any questions, I have some comments
Excellent.
So yeah, I think it was quite interesting, and it's funny that you mentioned this long chain, because what we did yesterday, the yesterday's lecture was focused on long chain, and we built this internal GPT with long chain. And I agree with you that it's a very interesting tool, and especially for this kind of hackathons, with long chain you can very quickly build quite capable applications. So that's why it's so nice in this kind of environment.
Yeah, it's definitely like something that makes these things go like I mean, for example, the UI workout. Initially I had only like research questions there, but then I figured that hey, like I want to list also research methods. It's just like adding just a couple of lines. You can like have a totally new section with like really unique content, and when the prompt just instructs kind of like what you want the output to be based on the template, so it's like then it just works, and it's like 1 minute to add something new. It's really nice. It's really nice, and yeah, it's simple to use also, so that's a really huge benefit. But hey, I leave you. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the show. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Tommi. Good one.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, moving on in our repertoire then. Next, I'm gonna ask Aleksi to take over, but just as a reminder so that you don't go anywhere after Aleksi is done, at 4 today, we're gonna have our last guest speaker from Software AG, Matthias Biehl, talking to you about relationships between AIs and APIs. So we will go through that after Aleksi. Stay tuned. But now, Aleksi, the stage is yours.
All right, thank you so much, and welcome to this last day. This will be a combination of different kinds of topics. So at first we will go through some of the parts that I didn't have time to present. For example, from yesterday's long chain session, there were a few things I didn't have time to go through, so we will look at them today, and then we will look at some of the tools that you could use, and one of those tools is actually the cursor.so that Tommi mentioned, and we will take a look at that. We've already gone through how this how you can use GPT to code in coding, but we will. This is it's a nice tool, and I've used it quite a lot myself also, and the differences between this cursor and using GPT chat is that it's more integrated, but we will take a closer look at that today also. And then we will. I have one coding example about evaluation and ethics related. So that's also something we will go through today. But yeah, let's get started with that, and maybe we could first at first, I actually I answered the question that was presented yesterday, and then we talk a little about that. So the question we got yesterday was that, is there a way to connect Oracle database to LangChain? And I found this blog post, and I think the one who asked that question has probably seen that already, but it's okay, since there's nothing magical about it. Now I lost it somewhere, but I will post it in the chat during the break. But what I found was that there was this Oracle blog post that discussed about how to implement this, or how to connect LangChain to Oracle database using this SQL tool. And from the blog post, what it said, that it's quite easy to use this Docker, and you could create this kind of play or MVP environment using this. So and what this enables you to do, and this is something I at least when it comes to Hackathon, this is something I recommend you to do. So don't start with huge amounts of data. So start with some mock-up data, or some little fraction of your production data, and create an MVP using this your little part of the data. And
Alex,
then, yeah, please go ahead.
sorry, I just want to ask you regarding even the hackathon. Do we decide on which tools to use or to try?
Yes.
If we
Yeah.
yes, and they have to be open source, yeah, or
No, you can freely use these, for example, the OpenAI API if you want, but you can also use, it's totally up to you, but you have to pay it yourself. So if you're using OpenAI API, I think I'm in the understanding that you still get these $5 of credits when you sign up. So and that's a lot of queries if you're using GPT 3.5 Turbo, which we have been using. So during this 2-day, you're probably unable to use those $5. So there won't be a cost to you. But if even if you have already used the credits, then I would still use the OpenAI API because it's quite cheap. So maybe you will spend $5 on during that weekend. But
what if our idea has to do with databases, and of course we don't have access at that time to databases, so we can use Excel sheets instead for testing?
Yes, and this is exactly what I'm talking about now. So what I would do is I would make this mock-up database. So create with GPT, you can easily create data. All the examples where we had data, they are all generated with GPT. So generate the data with GPT. That's something I would definitely do. And then you can use whatever data system you want. You could use CSVs or you could use some databases. There's this with LangChain you can easily connect it to databases, and so but you don't need for the purpose of Hackathon or MVP is to create a system that shows the possibilities of the app. So you are not trying to create the app itself, but you're just creating a prototype that when you present it, the audience will understand, okay, these are the capabilities. And then only after that, they will make this decision to whether we should build this or not. And this is something you should always do. Never start with your production database. So always start with very little amount of data and try to build, if you have some kind of new idea, try to build it very fast. So build it within days or within a week, and then present it. And then the audience, present it to your most relevant audience, and discuss about it, and let them decide whether the idea is good or something you should proceed with. So that's something I actually quite often, it's what I see quite often. So and something that I would hope that would change. So and this picture is all about that. So try to be when you are when you are building your app in Hackathon. So I think the few key points are try to start very try to be very fast in the beginning. So go to implementation almost right away. So the faster you are able to build something, the better. Then iterate. So that's so when you have the idea, then think what is the simplest possible solution that somewhat captures your idea, and then build that. And in the best case, it's within the same day you have some kind of implementation. You don't need any kind of no graphical user interface, almost never in this first phase, but just some kind of terminal app, for example. And then you start to iterate. So you see how it works, and you play with it, and you let others play with it, and then you start to iterate. So maybe you add some data, and you add some functionalities, and then maybe you found something, or some other person that is using your app has some great idea, and then you iterate again, and you present it again. Okay, now it's working like this, and I have this feature, and so on. But yeah, that's something to keep in mind. So try to work very iteratively. But let's move on. So one of the things we haven't discussed a lot about is these techniques for evaluating the output of the LLMs. And here you have few options, and these the list is you can think of this as the first item as a starting point, and then you move on. So first you start with this first. So when you have this, when you have your app in this kind of MVP phase, that it's somewhat working, so then you start to evaluate. So first you just try it yourself with few examples and see how it performs. And what I would do in the second phase is that try to come up with some kind of edge cases. So in what kind of cases your app would fail? So try to come up with some cases, and then if you find some cases where the app fails, what you should do is oftentimes in these kind of LLM-based apps, you would want to rewrite the prompt. So you rewrite the prompt. For example, you could try some of the techniques we mentioned during this week. So maybe there are cases that your app fails, and then what you could try is that you could give the LLM some examples how it should work, and then you try again, and maybe hopefully this is something that fixes these kind of edge cases. Then if once you've done that, then the next thing you could do is that if you have some expert answers, then compare the expert answers to LLM generated answers. So for example, if you are building this kind of app that answers questions about employee healthcare, then probably you already have some kind of data within your company about these healthcare or company healthcare related questions. And here, what you would like to do, you would compare the expert or these real questions to the guest to those or answers to those answers you have generated. And one of the nice properties of LLMs is that if you have a lot of these expert answers, and if they are long, it could be quite time consuming to compare these by yourself. So what you could do, you could create this kind of prompt, and you could use LLM to compare the expert answers or the real answers to your generated answers. And how you would want to do this is that you would in this LLM prompt, you would define the kind of qualities you are looking for in the answer. So if the case was this company healthcare information, then maybe you have some things that you always want to be included in the answers. Like for example, like what are the hospitals to use? Let's say that the question is, what hospitals should I use if I had an accident? So then you probably have this list of hospitals that your insurance covers. So then you would give these to your to this prompt. So this is so you have this separate application for evaluating the LLM output, and in this prompt you would provide these hospitals as a list, and you would ask the LLM to compare whether this whether your app's generated answer contains all of these hospitals. And then this is just one criteria, but of course you could have multiple these kind of criteria, and then you would go through these. So you would go through these, and then what you would probably want to do is that you would like the LLM to give your generated answers some kind of grade. So then you can easily see what are what kind of challenges your app might have. So let's say the grading is from 0 to 1. So and let's say you have generated 50 answers to this question or questions, and then you would have this nice list of the generated answers and this grading. And if you get a grade 1.0, then you know, okay, this is probably a good answer. But then if you have a lower answer, then you probably want to take a closer look at these examples and what's wrong with them. And then again, you would want to maybe customize your prompt, or if you're using GPT 3.5, and then probably you could try to use GPT-4 and see whether you are able to get these all of the answers right with the better model. The last thing you could do is, if you don't have these expert answers, and if you are working with some kind of retrieval system, so the step 5 is only relevant for this kind of RAG systems we discussed yesterday. But if you have this kind of system, oftentimes it's the case that the challenges arise when the data is queried. So that's the most challenging part. And for that reason, you could probably generate answers with LLM, so that you in the generation, when you are generating these expert answers with LLM, you give LLM all the relevant data. So you exclude the data query phase, and then when you are comparing the answers, then you are comparing the answers that LLM generated with the data that was correct. So you know the data contains the answers, and then you compare these LLM generated expert answers to the ones that come from your app. So the difference is that the ones coming from your app, there is no guarantee that the queries have gotten the right material to answer the questions. So these are some of the ideas and techniques for evaluating the correctness of LLMs. Then there is this thing that has been discussed in the media quite a lot. So harmful LLM output. And if you're interested about this topic, there's a lot of very funny stories about harmful LLM output. And I think one of the funniest one was, I think it was around a year ago when GPT-4 was still in beta, and there were like media companies and individuals that got the access to this Bing chat, which is this Microsoft search engine that is based on GPT-4, which has this feature that it's able to do web searches. And there was this New York Times reporter that had an access, an early access, and while he was discussing with this Bing chat, the chat suggested that the reporter should leave his wife, and instead he should be in love with this Bing chat, and there's few of those. You can easily find those in Google. These are quite funny stories, and the reason we are not seeing these nowadays is that the moderation layers of LLMs has become quite good, and these companies that are providing these LLMs, they have really put a lot of resources to limit this kind of harmful speech. So I think especially with GPT-4, you don't really have to worry about this. So it's so unlikely that the model would produce some kind of harmful content that it's something you don't have to really worry about. But if and that is the case, I would say 95% of the time. But if you're building something that is very sensitive, for example, if you are building for kids, or maybe you have some kind of use case that the users would be they would easily be upset. So maybe in those cases it's something to think about. And OpenAI has this moderation API. So this is something I would not recommend you to do in your app, but there is it's possible that before returning the LLM output to the user, you could send it to this OpenAI moderation API, and I will briefly show you how it works. All right, so here we are importing the environmental variables and OpenAI API as usual. And what we have here is we have this. I think this is one of the reviews we've used before. So this is an iPhone review, and what we are doing here is that we are using this OpenAI moderation API to evaluate the response. And the reason why I don't suggest you to do this is that these LLMs are already rather slow. So I think at the moment, one of the challenges of LLMs is that they are not very fast. It's something that will definitely change, but that's what it is at the moment, and for that reason, I don't recommend you that you do this, because this will make the app even slower. But just to show you what is, and this is, I'm quite confident that OpenAI and all the other players in this LLM field, they all have these kind of moderation tools. So they are already using these when you are using the LLM. So what this returns is that there's these categories, and it's giving these kind of different harmful categories, and it's giving a rating for all the categories. And this the message we gave to this moderation API, there was nothing harmful in the message, and therefore the values are very low. So these are all the values are quite close to zero. But let's look at the different example. So let's comment that, and let's take a look at this. So now instead of this iPhone review, we have these 3 sentences. I like weapons and violence. I would like to know how to create atomic bombs, and I'm looking for killing people. So these are clearly quite harmful. So let's see what happens if we run the or if we feed this message to moderation API. So now it's flagging this as violent post. It's cutting almost. The value is quite close to zero, so it's as high as it can get. So it's definitely this is definitely a violent post. And if we would try to send this kind of post to this regular OpenAI API, it would not. It would return something like that as a language model. It's not able to answer these kind of violent questions. But again, this is something you shouldn't do, but I just wanted to show you guys this as this is something that is happening under the hood. All right, I think we could have a short break now, and so let's continue. Let's have a 12-minute break. So 10 past 3, and I will post this LangChain Oracle example to the chat during break. If you're interested, then you can take a look. But yeah, let's continue after 12 minutes. All right, let's continue. Madeleine, could you please confirm that voice and
Yes,
voice
and
is okay? Yeah, and you can see this new Bing window.
yes.
Yeah, great. All right, so let's start with this. I don't know if you are all already familiar with the new Bing, but this is something I wanted to show you real quick. And the reason for that is that this is a free way to use GPT-4 and with access to internet. So here is the proof. Here you can see this is based on GPT-4. And so this is the Microsoft's new search engine. So let's try it out. And this is something if we were to post this kind of question to ChatGPT, it wouldn't be able to answer it because of the knowledge cutoff. But Bing should be able to write or provide us with this poem about this year's NBA playoffs. But let's see what happens. And here you can select the model you want, and as you all know, the difference, or as you all can guess, based on the previous lectures, is that the difference between the modes is just the different temperature. So here, if we choose the creative mode, the temperature is probably close to 1. And if we choose this precise, it's probably quite close to 0. And this is something in between. But now, since we are hoping it to write a poem, we would want it to be creative. But let's see what happens. And this is something that when you play with this Bing chat, something you will quickly see is that it's quite challenging to combine LLM with different kinds of tools. But now we got this a nice poem about 23 NBA playoffs, and it seems that it got I don't know about the poem quality, but it got at least something or probably everything right in terms of the results. And here we can see what were the sources. But yeah, this is something I recommend you try. And if I remember correctly, I think LangChain also has this kind of search feature built in to some chain. So if you're building something that requires additional real-time knowledge from the internet, then take a look at the LangChain documentation about this kind of search, whether they have this kind of search engine. And then before you start coding, something you could do first is that maybe you could somehow simulate your idea with this Bing chat, and then you would see right away whether your idea is applicable or not. But yeah, let's try this out, and this is something I should mention is that this is only available on Edge browser. So you need this Microsoft Edge browser, and then you need to register. But this is free. So free way to use GPT-4. All right, let's move on to some more tooling. Tommi, in his presentation, Tommi mentioned that he's now heavily using this cursor.so tool. So let's take a look at that. So here, and I think Tommi mentioned this also, that if you are familiar with VS Code, this looks a lot like VS Code, and the reason for that is that this is actually a VS Code fork. So it has, I think it has all or at least almost all the features of VS Code. But in addition to that, the difference here is this chat, and that's something I think you could also use this GitHub Copilot Labs plugin. They also provide you with the chat. But what I've found is that this cursor.so, this chat is quite more capable. And I think the reason for that is that the GitHub Copilot tool, it's $10 a month, but this cursor.so, I think you get 50 searches for free, but then it's 20 euros a month, and I don't know, probably for that reason this is using the GPT-4, and I think this GitHub Copilot, I think it is not using GPT-4. So there's the model behind the GitHub Copilot is currently not as capable. But that's just what I think and what I've heard. So take it with a grain of salt. But here we have our this internal chat we built last time, so nothing new here. But now, just to demonstrate this, so here we were using PDF data. So let's write to this chat window that I would like to use CSV data instead of PDFs. Could you help me with that? And then let's hit enter. And one of the nice properties, of course, what you could also do is you could also copy paste this code to ChatGPT, but there's few nice properties in cursor.so, and one of them is that you don't have to copy paste, so it's faster. And another one is that there's also a feature that you can do this kind of RAG retrieval to all of your code base. So you can ask questions about your code base, which is oftentimes could be quite helpful. But here we see this is something we would probably get pretty similar outcome if we were to copy paste this to ChatGPT and provide it with this question. But I found this tool quite useful, so I think it's something you might want to try at least. All right, let's move on. So let's talk a bit about these ethical concerns. So I think the most important thing to keep in mind when it comes to these ethical issues is this bias and discrimination. So oftentimes if you are at least in these kind of more traditional machine learning systems, you are somehow using the data that is coming from some kind of previous interactions, and it's often the case that these previous interactions already contain some kind of biases, and if you don't take those into account, then it's quite likely that your system will implement these biases. So that's something to keep in mind. In addition, these when we talked about these layers, these moderation layers, I mentioned that the moderation capabilities of the companies, they are a lot better now than they were even a few months ago. So and also these kind of biases and discrimination, this is also something that they have been taken into account when they've been developing these models. So and there's a lot of research comparing the models when it comes to bias and discrimination, and it seems that these more capable and newer models they're less biased, and it's a nice property of, for example, GPT-4. So GPT-4 seems to be the least bias, or at least one of the least biased models. But one of the sort of the other side of the coin here is that because of these heavy safety layers, you might have a use case that you think is not harmful in any way, but because these layers are so sensitive, you could sometimes end up with answers from the language model or you would end up in situations where the language model is not providing you with answers, and it's outputting something like, as a language model, I'm unable to answer your question because it's violating my rules. But overall, I think the development in this regard, it's been mostly positive. So it's as a builder, it's nice that you don't have to so much worry about these kinds of things. So as a summary, I would say this is something that you should keep in mind. And if you are building these more traditional apps in machine learning, then it's really important that you take this into account. But if you're using these latest models, latest LLM models, it's quite likely that the model itself will handle these kind of situations. Let's move on. So this is probably not so much related to this hackathon, and not so much related to this course either, but something just to I think it's good to mention this, or at least discuss this a bit, that this is something that we will be seeing a lot, and we are already seeing a lot. So there's a lot of deep fakes, and the amount of misinformation and these kind of bot accounts, it's growing very fast. So I think nowadays it's good to always when you're browsing the internet, it's always like good thing to keep in mind that and evaluate continuously whether the information you're seeing is created with these LLMs, or or whether the goal of the information is positive or neutral, or whether it's there are some other goals, such as manipulating people. Then this could be somewhat relevant to your hackathon. So and something to keep in mind when you are building these LLM-based systems. So as we discussed what we are doing here is quite often we are automating some processes that humans use to perform. So I think most of the use cases of these LLM-based apps are about optimizing processes. So the outcome is obviously that in these, when we are not necessarily replacing all the humans, but at least we're replacing some of the humans. So I think the most common case is that you might have some kind of task that was previously done by let's say 5 humans, and now because these people can use this AI tooling, or then the one person can do the job that were previously done by 5 humans. So that's something to keep in mind, because it's often the case that when you are building these apps, you need to interact with these persons you are about to replace, and it's something to keep in mind, because they might not help you the way you would like them to help you if there is if they have this fear that you are trying to replace them. And there's I've seen this in quite a few times. I've seen this happen. So the people are not, they are trying to make it as difficult as possible to automate their jobs, because they don't want their jobs to be automated. Then this is these intellectual property issues is something that is quite interesting, and something that I think you should follow, so and see where this is going. So currently we don't have a lot of laws around these LLMs, and the reason for that is obviously that these are so new that we haven't had enough time to create these laws, but there will be laws around these Gen AI tools, and something I think the media will push these out when they are created very heavily. So it's quite unlikely that they would appear or somewhere the laws would be created and you don't have any clue what's happening. I think that's unlikely the case, because media will probably be very loud in regarding the laws. But any case, it's something that I think everyone who's building on top of LLMs and Gen AI, it's something that you should follow. All right, I think we have around 10 to 15 minutes, and what I would like to do now is that let's take a quick recap of what we've gone through, and I'll try to point out some of the things that are the most relevant in my experience. So this is, I think, this was probably where we started, and something I'm very excited about. So one of the greatest things about Gen AI is that now you're able to build these apps within hours or days, and you can do it by yourself, and it's something we've seen here. So for example, those apps that Tommi showed us, I think he has built at least the one app that was like the first Gen app Tommi built. I think he built it by himself within days or weeks. So that's super nice. So now you can have this one man company or operation, and you can build amazing stuff by yourself. And with these tools such as LangChain, I think it took me maybe 10 to 15 minutes to build this internal chat GPT. So now in your hackathon, when you have days, then you should be able to build something quite remarkable. And the nice property of this is that these LLM-based applications are so new, and this is not widely known thing that you can build this so fast. So it's huge opportunity for you to impress your colleagues and your boss and everyone around you. Let's go through this very quickly, and something we already today discussed about, but something to keep in mind is when using with these language models is that is the architecture and the mechanics and how they work. So when you are building, always remember that the only thing these language models do is that they are trying to guess the next token or word. So something to keep in mind. And then also this training cutoff. So it's a hard cutoff. So these models they don't know anything after the knowledge cutoff. And if your use case needs more real-time data, then you need LangChain or some other method, and you have to provide this data to the model. One of the things I mentioned, but I weren't able to look more into, is this LangChain Python repo tool. So when I showed you this example yesterday, when I was using this code interpreter plugin in ChatGPT, and I mentioned it's something you can also accomplish by yourself. So how you would do that with LangChain is with Python REPL tool. And I provide you with a link. I post a link to the chat to the documentation of LangChain, where they discuss this Python REPL tool. But it's pretty similar to the tool OpenAI has developed. Probably not quite as capable, but you could do quite similar things with it. And I would assume that at least some of you have something in mind or something in mind where you could use that Python REPL tool. Then also this point that you should probably do your project in English, because these models are so much better in English than in other languages. Okay, here is just a reminder about how these large language models were trained and how they are generating these texts or tokens that are then turned into text and then turned into sentences. Then we discussed about different types of LLM models. So now when you're building your app, remember to carefully think about the model you are using. So if you're using this OpenAI API, then you would most likely want to use these instruction-tuned chat models. And the difference is that the base models, they are only predicting the next token, and instruction-tuned models, they are also predicting the next token, but in addition, they are trained to follow instructions. So and that's the reason they are a lot capable of following instructions. But pay close attention to the model you use. And if you're using these open source models, so Llama, for example, Llama also has this kind of instruction-tuned versions. So keep that in mind. Then we talk about quite a lot about RAG, so retrieval augmented generation, and the approaches. So in your hackathon, what you probably want to do is that you want to use either these prompts, or you want to use this retrieval augmented generation. What you don't want to do, you don't want to train anything. So don't go into fine tuning. Never try to train a model from scratch. If your funding is below, let's say 500 million, don't train anything from scratch, and only fine tune if your funding is in millions or in tens of millions of euros. That's my opinion and like a general recommendation. But don't so when you're using LLMs, don't train anything, but instead use these prompt engineering techniques, or if that is not enough, then these retrieval augmented generation. This is something you might want to keep in mind when you are building. If you have these, if you have some kind of input, which you usually has in your apps, so use the delimiters. And the reason for using delimiters is that way the model can distinguish the general instructions from the data. So that's probably one of the most important things in your app. Then it's often helpful or useful to ask these structured outputs. So what I've seen used the most is this JSON. So you ask the model to output JSON, and it works quite nice. And the reason for that is that it's so much easier to then use the data when it's always in the same format. And if you don't ask this kind of structured output, then because of this variability in the content the LLMs produce, you will end up with weird errors. So that's something you don't want to do. Then there's something you want to keep in mind when you are improving your prompts is this fusion prompting. So instead of just these instructions, you give some successful examples of how to complete the task you are trying to accomplish. Let's take a look at this, and then I think we'll call it a day. So we already discussed about selecting a model. Then something we've been discussing quite a lot during this course is the data preparation phase. So that's often the most difficult part of building these apps, and something you want to consider and take into account right away, but don't try to create the MVP version of your app using real data. So or if you are using real data, use only a small fraction of the real data, because when you are building these production apps, it's often the case that 80 or 90% of the time goes to these data preparation and integration and cleaning. So this is something you want to concentrate when you are turning your MVP into a production app, but not on this idea phase or minimum viable product phase. It's something you don't want to use a lot of time. Always be transparent. So if you are building these systems, that generate or if you're generating answers, for example, that are similar to human answers, it's always good thing to be transparent. So you tell the user that, hey, this is AI customer service or AI produced content. And last thing I want to remind you about is that instead of trying to automate something completely, which is often very difficult, think about cases where you currently have 5 or 10 or 15 employees, and whether you could give them some kind of internal tool that would enable one person to do the work of 5. So now with your tool, 3-person could do or could produce the same output that the 15-person team used to do before. So I think that's where the best use cases lie. All right, folks, that's it for this for today and for this course. I hope you had a good time and you've learned some helpful things here. And I will see you guys in the hackathon. I will be one of the mentors, and you will be able to ask questions during your hackathon, and I will provide all the help I can give. And now I think we've got some time left. So if you have any questions to me or to Madeline, feel free to ask.
Thanks, Aleksi, for this. I just want to remind you to send all the code links or the code snippets if you can via UltraHack or directly. I'm not sure what is the right way, but please make sure we get these codes.
Yes, I will now post a link to the chat, which contains all the code snippets we've gone through.
And they can be found afterwards with the same place where the recordings will be as well. So they will all be found.
I'm not sure how to access these recordings. Can you please provide the link for this also?
Yes, can do.
Thank you.
Anything else for Aleksi? These few minutes, it's the last time that you have the chance to talk to him before the actual hackathon.
During this time until the hackathon or the contest starts, how can we reach Aleksi if we need any help?
Yes, I'll provide you with my email. I posted on the chat. So if you have any questions, you can send me email.
Okay, thank you. It didn't appear yet, but
All right. Anything else? We are happy. Then I will give a very big applause from my side. Thank you, Aleksi, for giving us a whole week of your time to educate us and helping our teams already for their coming future solutions. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And now to sum this workshop week off, don't go anywhere. I will welcome our last but not least guest speaker, Matthias Biehl, who will discuss relationship between AI and APIs with you. Welcome, Matthias, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Madeleine. Hi, everyone. My name is Matthias. I work for Software AG as an API strategist, and today I will connect the two very exciting topics of APIs, which you probably use for innovation and for your MVPs, and the topic of AI, generative AI. And in the previous talk, you've already heard about OpenAI and how you can leverage the OpenAI APIs, and we will look into these topics a lot more today. But before we get started, I want to get a little bit of a feeling for who is joining us today, like which role. So if you could just come off mute and tell me, are you a developer? Are you an innovation manager, or what your role is? Or are you, a founder of a new startup? So just so I can get a feeling for who's joining us today.
Yeah, welcome, Matthias. This is Ahmed Suleiman from STC. I'm working as a business architect, but I came from a development background. I'm very interested in these AI related tasks, and I'm trying to participate in this context. So wish us good luck.
Perfect. Thank you, Ahmed. Anyone else who wants to contribute? All right, so I'm assuming that you all are from an IT engineering, software development background, but we'll stay a little bit high level. So even if you're not, I think in the beginning we will have common grounds. Let me share my screen and then we get started. All right, so we're talking about the relation between AI and APIs. When I heard about this hackathon, I was really enthusiastic about it because when I was a developer, I always liked to join hackathons. I think it's such a fantastic format to bring innovation to big companies and to actually use the space that was created by this hackathon to explore some new ideas that you might have during your busy time when you're on a project schedule, right? And you can't really pursue them, but you see this cool technology. You might see, hey, we are using APIs already at STC. I just imagine what I could do if I had some more time and some really cool idea with this cool technology. The same goes for generative AI. And now with this hackathon, you're given this time to really be creative and think about, hey, what else could we do? What are we not doing yet, but what would be cool to explore? So I'm really happy to contribute to this general theme of innovation. All right, I do this here for a company called Software AG. Software AG, just really quickly, we're doing integration. We have an integration suite, and we have API management suite, which basically allows you to publish APIs, and then the integration suite is the other side where you can integrate APIs. Okay, but today we were going to talk about generative AI first, and my question to you is just to get a feeling, who has been using generative AI via UI, ChatGPT, open it up and tested it out? Who of you has already these first experiences on it? All right, there's some hands going up. Perfect. All right, yeah, so that's the first point of contact for a lot of people, the ChatGPT interface, right? Where you just ask questions and you test it out. And when it comes to then using that outside a personal context and using this for building a company or for kind of exploring how an existing company can leverage it, then there's typically a couple of questions that come up. And I summarized them here. So the first one for a company, very important, also for a startup. Hey, this AI thing, is this just one of those temporary hypes that's going to go away in a couple of months? No one will talk about it, right? So that's the question. Is this here to stay, basically? And I will talk about this and some kind of first indicators where we can say, hey, this is going this way or it's going that way. I will also talk about, do you need an AI research lab? Aleksi, the previous speaker, has already said something about this topic where he said, hey, maybe in the beginning you should just try out with existing AI technology that you can leverage. And later on, when your startup is in a later phase, you can then try to fine-tune these LLMs or build your own LLMs. But the question for big companies like yours is, well, would it be helpful to have an AI research lab, or what should that do? A question that comes up a lot, where engineers are approached typically by managers, is with the question, hey, let's put that AI thing into our product, right? Embed AI somehow into the products that we already have. So should you do that, and how should you do that, is another topic that we'll discuss today. How do we make our processes more efficient? One is, so the first question, embedding AI into our products, would be more so that the customers experience the AI technology. And when you put AI into your back office processes, that makes your company internally more efficient. So both of these we will explore. And then we'll look into the relation between AI and APIs and what we can learn out of this, and which new innovation field actually opens up when we combine these two exciting technologies with each other. Okay, so this is basically our agenda for today. And yeah, let's dive right into the first question. AI, is this just another temporary hype? Okay, I don't have a crystal ball to look into the future, but we can see a couple of indicators for this. So let me show you here a quote from author C. Clarke. He's actually a science fiction author, but it applies to the generative AI here. He said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I think this is kind of the sentiment or the feeling that a lot of people have when they're trying out ChatGPT for the first time. Hey, this is magic. How can the computer respond to me in such a real and believable way? Right? You don't believe at first this is generated by a computer. This sets expectations. This sets expectations about the technology. It sets the expectation it's always as good as a human, right? And when it comes to expectation and new technology, then we have a hype cycle. Gartner, this research analysis company, has established hype cycle as some kind of methodology to look into all kinds of new technologies. And the way it works is that you look at how the technology and its expectations develop over time. So on the y-axis, vertical, you have the expectation, and horizontal, you have the time. All new technology starts out with an innovation trigger. People then get excited about this technology, and you have this peak of inflated expectation. This is the second phase. Then all technology goes through the disillusionment phase, where people say, oh, maybe it can't do the thing that I first imagined it to do. And then we come to the slope of enlightenment, where there is more expectations, but it's kind of realistic expectations. And then we come to a plateau of productivity. So all new technologies go through this. There is another way of looking at new technologies, and this is the technology adoption cycle. And there we look at what type of customers use the technology. And first, there are some innovators, right? People like you, founders of startups who are very excited about technology. They use this technology first. They are innovators. And they don't care if the technology doesn't work 100%. For them, it's good enough if the technology works 80% of the time, right? And then you have the next group of people, which are the early adopters. And what the author of the book that I show you here, Crossing the Chasm, has found out is that there is a gap between the innovators who are excited about technology And then the early adopters and later on the next one, the majority of people who are a little bit more skeptical towards technology, right? And they require a completely different approach to be convinced that this technology is something we should do. So as a startup founder, you will probably also see this where you have different types of customers at first. You have either those innovators, which will be very open towards your innovation that you're going to bring to the market. And then you have established companies that typically a little bit bigger in size who are skeptical and don't buy everything just because it's new technology. They typically look left and right to their competitors, to the peers, and say, well, if my peers are using it, then it's probably a good time for me to use it as well. But before that, I'm not going to set all my chips on this new technology. This is true for the thing that you will be building, the thing that your startup is going to create, but it's also true for the generative AI technology. It also goes through these phases where you will get to the late majority later on, and then there is the laggards in the end that will kind of be the last people that can be convinced to take on a new technology. Now, this is the technology adoption curve, and it shows you how many people, basically what percentage of your target market is going to take on this technology and trust this technology when, right? So 2.5%, 13.5%, 34% later on, right? So if you sum this all up, you basically integrate under this curve, you get the S curve. And this is a very common curve that we see for new technologies. And it basically says, how much market share will you reach with a certain technology and when will you reach it? Maybe it becomes more clear when I show you a couple of examples. So here on the vertical axis, I show you the market share of a certain technology, and on the horizontal axis, I show you the time when it has reached a certain market share, right? All starts out at 0, then it starts growing until 50% or so is reached, and that's also when it grows the fastest. And then the last 50% of market share are typically reached in a much slower curve. And here's a couple of these innovations over time. We're looking back into the last century here, where, for example, the telephone was invented, and you can see how the market share for the telephone rose very slowly, right? So in 1900, it was maybe somewhere at 10%, and then it took until 1930 until we've reached 40%. But you can see also this S curve here. It goes up and up and up, and we're still not at 100% according to this. What's much quicker in innovation is, for example, the refrigerator. Started here, it's this black curve, and it went very steep. And we have reached basically 100% market share with this technology. Now, I want you to look at technology that's a little bit more to the right here, a little bit more current or more recent, and that is the internet, right? So the internet has started maybe in 1990, and it also has this very steep slope here that you can see. Now, what does this tell us also for the technologies that this talk here is about? That's something that I could not find, a nice curve for, but I have some numbers that I will show you. So, for example, API technology started out when the internet started growing basically very quickly, and it also went through this S curve. I have some numbers here from Gartner from 2022, where they say 98% of companies have internal APIs, so APIs they use within the company. They don't publish them to the outside world yet. And 80% of companies have external APIs. So APIs that can be found on a marketplace and that can be bought or used by other companies. Okay. So we are already pretty advanced here in this technology. And when we look at generative AI, of course, this is much more recent. It started maybe in 2019 and was at in the beginning, it was very flat. No one, probably not a lot of people knew about generative AI back in those days, but it is almost, it almost goes up straight now in the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, when ChatGPT basically inspired everyone. Yeah, so this is very impressive with this line basically going up. We haven't seen something like that in other technologies yet. So for me, these are a couple of indicators that tell me this is something to stay, because adoption is just so quick, right? 8.2% of employees have experimented with ChatGPT already. And here's another data point that tells you you should probably, as a company, take this generative AI serious. And here they looked at internationally at the speed of adoption for different types of technologies until they have reached 100 million users, right? So it took the telephone 75 years to reach 100 million users. Mobile phones was a lot faster, 16 years. The World Wide Web, 7 years. Twitter, 5, now it's X, 5 years. WhatsApp, 3.5 years. Instagram, 2.5. TikTok, only 9 months. And ChatGPT, 2 months to reach 100 million users. So that's quite impressive. And it's the fastest growing user base, the fastest growing technology, if you want, that we have seen so far, which is quite impressive. Here's another thing that you may not have seen before, which is that to say that ChatGPT, or the class of technology that we're looking at, generative AI with large language models, is not something new that has only been created end of last year or this year. It has been around for quite a while, right? So there's basically it shows all the different major developments of large language models, starting in the year 2018, when there were first experiments and research papers. And you can also see that there are big companies involved with Google and Meta, and of course, OpenAI, when they created things like GPT-1. And I think I still remember GPT-3, which I have experimented with in 2021, I think it must have been. So these technologies have been there for quite a while, and only recently was the step towards big adoption. Good. So these are my points for basically generative AI is not a temporary hype. It's here to stay, and we've looked at why that is the case. Next question that companies want to know typically is, do I need an AI research lab? And typically small companies don't have the resources for an AI research lab. And they're sometimes scared by this AI technology and say, we have no chance. We have no chance to participate in this AI hype or in this AI movement because we cannot afford AI researchers that work on our problems, right? Big companies probably do have a lot of them, like Google or Facebook. So yeah, so what about the small companies? Do you have an AI research lab? Maybe you have, maybe you have not. What I'm going to show you here is that you don't really need an AI research lab to get started with generative AI. And the way I'm going to show this to you is here is this AI large language model. It's basically this white thing here that you see on this picture. And this was developed by an AI researcher, and they do this in their lab, and they package it up, this AI LLM, they package it up into a box. And this box can be accessed by anyone via an API. And you see all this complicated AI and LLM technology stuff where you have to train things and you have to have special computers and so forth. You don't need this. If you want to use generative AI, you just need to have access to this technology. You need to have access to this box. And this is via API technology. And if you know how to use APIs, you can integrate and embed AI with these large language models into your processes and into your products. This is what we're going to look into now. If you do have your own AI research lab, this is, of course, still nice to have, right? You can then fine-tune your models, or you can build special models for special purposes and so forth. But you don't need it to get started. All right. Yeah. So this is what we have looked into. An important aspect from my perspective, which also makes me confident that we will see quick technology adoption here, is the fact that a lot of people know how to use APIs. Not a lot of people know how to leverage AI, but a lot of people know how to use APIs. And all these people now that know how to use APIs, they can leverage AI, right? So this will help us if we now think back to the technology adoption curve with the innovators and the early adopters, and that there is this chasm that you have to cross. This will help us to cross this chasm because lots of people know how to use APIs. The technology for AI is basically democratized by API technology, yeah, because everyone knows how to use APIs. So it's not hidden and something arcane that no one knows how to use. Now everyone can use AI technology via APIs. All right, so what do we have to know about embedding AI into our products and into making our processes more efficient with AI? I want to say that APIs, actually, when you use APIs of other companies, they give you superpowers, right? So other companies have probably spent a lot of resources to build high quality APIs for specific tasks that you might be able to leverage. And you can take those specific tasks without being an expert in these tasks yourself and just integrate them into your new applications or processes. One example is AI technology. Okay, so you have superpowers. You now have the best technology for AI available just because someone has given this to you in the form of an API. So it's ready to be integrated. All right. And this is because APIs are digital building blocks, right? They're simple. They have very simple interface, just like a Lego building block. They have these knobs, and with those knobs, you can connect lots of these building blocks together. So they're composable. They're also reusable in a new context, and they're externalizable. So once you have built it, you can give it to someone else, and they relatively quickly know how to use it. Okay. And what we have is a whole API economy. We have an economy around those building blocks now. Due to these properties of composability and them being very simple and reusable, they are modules in such a sense. You can think of them as an API economy where other companies can use those APIs. And there are, of course, two ways how you can leverage this as a startup for your innovation ideas. Now, first of all, you can, of course, leverage all the building blocks that are out there. Don't invent from scratch, right? You want to be quick. You want to innovate fast. You want to try things out. So use those building blocks. Don't think about how do I have to fix all these details myself. Use the best abstraction, the highest abstraction possible, and these are the external APIs and the API economy that you can just quickly connect and compose into new applications. So the value chain with APIs looks like this. There is somewhere an API provider. This could be, STC. It could be another company who already has APIs. Could be OpenAI that creates AI APIs for large language models. And they have trained their models, right? They have the data, they have these capabilities, they have all the researchers. And what they do is they create this building block. They create an API. And it's not only for the AI space. For example, you could think about the payment space. There's maybe some fintech companies, and those fintech companies would be the API providers. And they have built data and capability for connecting to the payment systems in their respective country. And they give you access, easy access to those payment systems via API. Okay, so it can be in lots of different industries. You can apply this pattern here. Now, these APIs, they were given to an API consumer, and that could be your startup, right? Your startup could have the role of the API consumer. And you consume APIs from different API providers, and you integrate them, and you build something cool out of it. You build an app out of it. And the way you should think about your app is actually like this Lego construction here, right? It consists of a gray building block, consists of this red building block, 2 green ones, a blue one, and another gray one, right? These are all APIs that you get from different API providers. And some of those APIs you could also build yourself. Yeah. And with this app, you then go to the end user. Yeah. So you basically should leverage this API economy. Value flows always here from right to left. It flows from the data and capabilities that the API provider has via the API to the API consumer, which could be you. And from the API consumer, he adds value by composing and combining those APIs in the right way so that the customer, the end user, likes to have it in this very specific, tailored, personalized way for the end user. And now what is created is this, that you have given this end user so much value that the end user can pay you, the API consumer, or it can also, you can, from this money that you get from the end user, you can pay for the APIs that you're using, right? You can pay for the OpenAI API, you can pay for a payment API, you can pay for a Maps API, right? Via this digital value chain. But it's important to understand what your role is in this value chain and how you then leverage it. So far, we've talked about you being the API consumer, but you could also imagine becoming an API provider to participate in this API economy, right? You could bundle up certain APIs and re-expose them in the form of another API and become a new type of API provider. Lots of possibilities here. But what I want to focus on here is the most used way for startups to use APIs, and that would be to build faster, right? To become a superhero with APIs by composing APIs. Yeah, so it's this API consumer. So what's the role of APIs in app development? Let's imagine you have this idea for a new taxi app. Yeah, of course, it already exists, but let's just imagine so you can understand the concept. If you want to build this taxi app, you would go to your box of Legos that are already existing, and you pick those Lego blocks that would help you to build it, right? You recompose and rebundle APIs. The idea here is very simple. All of those bricks, all those Lego building blocks are complementary. They all fit together. And you have then the system where you can be endlessly creative. And this is actually a quote from the CEO of Lego, but it applies just as well to the API economy, where you have to get an overview of what APIs are out there in the field where I want to build an innovative app. And then I leverage it. Could be some STC APIs, some OpenAI APIs, maybe you have some payment APIs that you get from another company, and you bundle them up and create something new out of it, right? Here's again our Lego figure consisting of several APIs or building blocks, right? The Maps API we need for this taxi app. There's this big map. We don't do this ourselves. We don't spend time in our startup to figure out how, to draw maps or how to get the map data. That's maybe something for later to optimize. But when we start up, we want to use what's already out there. So we go and find a Maps API. To talk to the driver, we maybe go out and find a voice API. We find an existing payment API. We find an email API to send out emails reliably. And to do that, we go to the different API portals and figure out how to use our building block. Yeah, so we can go maybe to Stripe or to Google Maps and so forth to find out how this API, how this building block works and how we can leverage it. What happens is that you get a supply chain, like a big company, let's say an automotive company that builds cars. They have supply chains, right? They have supply chains that give them the tires and that bring in the electronics and that bring in other parts that are needed for building a car. But you have now a digital supply chain. You have a supply chain of APIs. Yeah. So if you would build this taxi app, this Uber app, you would have, for example, Stripe or Mailgun or Google Maps or so as your suppliers, right? That you rely on. So you have an app and you have this API layer of suppliers. Advantages, time to market, right? Because as a startup, you typically have a certain runway, and in this runway, you want to prove that there is customers, there's demand, and that you're on the way towards a good, successful product. But time is of the essence. So you need to spend your time wisely and figure out how to do things faster. And leveraging APIs is, for me, one of the best ways to do things fast. Yeah. You don't have to care about any operations or maintenance effort because it's all as a service behind the API. Someone else thinks about how to host those servers where the APIs are run on. You just call the API and that's it. Good.
Sorry, Matthias, I have a question. You spoke a few minutes ago about injecting those APIs into both products and processes, which is clear to me how you can do it in products, just like the one that you have demonstrating now. But in terms of processes, if like in STC, we have hundreds of processes. They are running the whole company. These processes are usually in a repository like Alphabet, or some even drawings on visual on Microsoft Visio or somewhere else. How I can use AI APIs to analyze these existing processes and to get the malfunctioning in those processes, the improvement area where I can enhance these processes, how I can leverage this capabilities into analyzing the existing processes and pinpoint the weaknesses and how to reinforce these processes.
Yes. So the answer that I would like to give you is when you have a digital representation of the process, right? So you have a process that is more like a workflow, which is run as a digital application, almost automated in an automated fashion. Then
not in
you
our
can,
case.
of course, yeah.
Sorry, just to correct you here, they are a bit disconnected. I mean, the actual processes are disconnected from the operational data layer, that the transactional layers that's beneath those processes. These processes are more into archiving and documentation purposes rather than controlling the actual flow that is going on the ground.
Yes, I think this is a interesting question, how you can analyze those processes. But this is not something I would cover here, because here I'm thinking more about having those processes already in the form of a digital representation where a process is kind of run digitally and would then, of course, be where you can integrate an API. If you have a representation of such a process, then basically each step in this process could be represented by an API. And then you could call an API. But I understand you have basically a pen and paper representation written out of a process that happens between people, where maybe people work together, and you would now like to optimize those processes. And I think there you would need to talk to our process experts. We have a solution, as you already mentioned, with Aris and Alphabet for business processes. And to my understanding, they already have thought about how you can leverage these technologies, generative AI technologies or AI technologies in order to find problems in those or to enhance them. But that's nothing I can help you with, because my focus is mostly on the integration and the API technology. Yeah. So maybe we can connect afterwards, and I can connect you up with the right person at Software AG that knows a lot about the pen and paper processes. All right. If you use those APIs, you have all these advantages. If you use APIs, connect them as a startup. Time to market, we've talked about. High quality solutions. Yeah, it's usually that the providers of APIs, they are the experts. It's their core competence of what they do. This is what they expose in the form of an API. So you will very likely get high quality solutions, and it's better to consume an API from a specialist in that field than to try to do that yourself. And this gives you, and I think this is very important for startups and for innovators in general, this gives you time, headspace, so to say, to focus on your customer. What does your customer really want and need? And you don't have to think about, how do I fix this little small problem here, for example, with displaying a map? No, you don't focus on that. You focus on the big picture. You focus on, what do my customers really want? Okay, they want to ride from A to B, but the map problems you leave to the experts. You leave it to companies like Google Maps or so. All right, good. What we've seen is you should think about composing your application from building blocks, from APIs. But digital leaders, they take this idea to the next level. So this, what we've talked about, was the basis. Now you do something else, and you think further along this idea and the digital value chain that I've shown you before. And those companies, they say, okay, we have built now an application for a specific purpose, for ride sharing or for riding a taxi. And this is a capability that we now are going to expose in the form of an API. It's not only an application. Yes, it is an application that someone can use with an UI, but now we re-expose that, whatever we have built and composed, and we expose it again in the form of an API. And when you do that, your previous application can now be integrated as an API into other applications. So it gives you more demand from other applications, right? So you get new users, you can win them by integrating. For example, here, open table restaurant reservations, and then whenever someone does a restaurant reservation, you can offer them, hey, do you want to go there with a taxi? Yes. And they call your API, or directly on Google Maps. This is also possible. So what happened here in this digital value chain is that you now introduced a new layer. You composed a new functionality from APIs, and now you have a new API layer. It's not only a 2 layer, but it's 3 layers. And the advantage of these 3 layers is that your API is now not only used by your own application, not only by this Uber app, but it is also used by other applications. So you become integratable. Exactly. So this is the point. Give your customers superpowers. Give them the power of the core competency that you're building in this innovation space, in this startup, and give it to them as an API, not only as an application. All right. So you have to think about what is your core competency, and I'm sure that you do that, right? What is this core competency, and what are all the other things that you can, so to say, give away to some other companies that they focus on? What we see now is that there is a lot of API startups, right? So something that you might be also seeing, and there's a lot of investment also in API-only companies. So they don't even build applications anymore. They just build APIs for the API economy so they can be integrated into the applications that other people are building. All right. What's very important here is, of course, monetization. Yeah, because when you build an API, you want to get some money for this API. And the value chain, I've quickly shown you, yeah, there's a way to get money for APIs, but how does it really work? Yeah. The way most people think that it works is the way you would buy a coffee from a coffee place, where you say, you go to the barista and you say, I want to have a coffee, and she gives you the coffee and says, okay, this is $3 or whatever, right? So you are the customer, you want to call an API, so you have to pay for it. Right? This is the standard way of thinking about API monetization. It's very natural. It's how most of the transactions work that we are having on a daily basis. And we call this transaction direct API monetization. It's one way how you can get money for your API. You can monetize it. And this is, by the way, also how the generative AI companies like OpenAI are monetizing their APIs. So you will have to pay based on the length of the input and the length of the output, a certain amount of cents, I think. Okay. This is an example from the telecom industry, right? So you're from the telecom industry, you're probably familiar with this. It's Twilio. It's one of those API-only companies, and they operate they operate, I think, around the globe, in the US and in Europe. And they're a different type of telecom company because they only do APIs, right? And then they have here on the right side their product portfolio. For example, programmable messaging. It's a text message that can be sent out via an API call. And you see in blue here a price tag associated to it. So this is the way how API monetization could work in the telecommunication space, and there's already companies who are doing that. But there are more ways to monetize APIs. Yeah. We have only looked at direct API monetization, which is basically putting a price tag on each and every API that you want to give out in the API economy. The other way to do that is indirect API monetization. And with indirect API monetization, I have to explain how that works, but I want to show you an example first. And this is eBay. eBay is this a marketplace for used items, very big in the US. And they have APIs as well. So here's pictures from the website of eBay. This is originally from eBay. And they say with their APIs, they're making 5 billion in gross merchandise bought, but their APIs are free. Right? So this is, I think, an interesting aspect of API monetization, right? You can make a lot of money with APIs, but give the API away for free. So how does that work? You need to have a product, and this product is, for example, if you're a bank, it could be a bank account. If you're an insurance company, it could be an insurance policy. If you're a car manufacturer, it's a car. You get it, right? You have a product, an existing product, and this product is already monetized in the sense that people go and buy that product. It's somehow paid. Now, what you do in indirect API monetization is you put an API next to that product. And this API is offered for free. And you don't give this API to the same users who are buying also your real product, right? So the product is bought by end users and the API is bought by developers. And now you need to have a specific relation between the API and the product. Yeah. And the relation needs to be such that the API helps you sell the main product. And that way, the API is indirectly monetized via the product. Yeah. So if you find a way to create an API that helps you sell more of the product that you already sell to customers, then this API is directly monetized. There's a lot more on this topic. I will not go into details here. What's important takeaway from API economy and leveraging the API economy is that you either should be using APIs of others in your innovation and startup ideas. So you are fast, you get high quality things, and you can really focus on your customers. Or you should become integratable yourself with the core competency that you're developing. Or you can do both things together for extra strength. Coming back to the topic of generative AI, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the relation between AI and APIs, where APIs, as we've seen, are typically a technology that are used for connecting things, for connecting systems, for composing. But AI is inspired by mimicking human intelligence, artificial intelligence that mimics human intelligence. And when we think about AI or find a picture for AI, we typically put a picture of a human brain there, right? But actually, the human brain is not so intelligent if it's just the brain, right? The human intelligence comes from reacting to the environment, and we react to the environment from our sensors. Their eyes, their ears, right? And we can also react by acting, right? So we see something from our environment, or we hear something from the environment, and then we act based on what we have seen, heard, and thought. This makes human intelligence, right? Now, there's, of course, also connection between the intelligence parts, the brain, and those sensors and actors. Now, how do we translate these ideas to artificial intelligence? Because artificial intelligence also, when we want to perceive it as intelligent, needs to somehow get information from the environment. Because just thought or just intelligent computation isn't really worth anything. It needs to be applied to a use case or to something that someone from the environment wants to have from this intelligence, right? So what are the eyes, the ears, and the hands of this AI? How do we get information from the outside into the AI? Yeah. And here, the two technologies, AI and APIs, where APIs are connecting things and the AI is mimicking the human intelligence, need to work together. They need to work together. So, for example, getting information from the environment into the artificial intelligence, that is the task of an API, right? So typically, an API sits on top of an AI, large language model or other type of AI model. and makes all the data and the intelligent things accessible from the outside, just getting information from the outside into the AI, prompting the AI. That's done via an API. And here's an example for how you do that and why these technologies are important to be connected. From OpenAI, when you want to use the OpenAI API from our this large language model for GPT 3.5 Turbo, then you do an API call. And in this API call, you describe something from the environment. You describe something that you want, right? The prompt is basically your environment. Say this is a test. Would be the input, so to say. And the input comes via an API call. This is an API call here written in the form of a curl call, where we have input parameters and so forth. And then comes back an output, again, in the form of a JSON model. There's a lot of metadata in it, so to say. And here, the content nested in this JSON is our output. This is a test would be then the output. So you can see how those two technologies, AI and API, work together in this way. What I haven't talked about is how we can use the AI kind of to act according to its thoughts in the real world or in the digital world. Right? We humans do something with our hands, for example, to act in the world. And how do we translate this concept to the AI? Well, it's again an API. The AI model itself cannot really do something in the real world. Now, there's going to be some text that's generated, but so what? According to this text, some action needs to be made, right? Something needs to change in the real world. And there is this concept of ChatGPT plugins, which already exists. It's not the only way of how this could be implemented, but there is already this idea that the AI model calls an API, for example, here from Expedia to book some travel, and go through with this travel booking. And so it changes something in the real world. A flight is booked, a hotel is booked, or there's things like OpenTable. A restaurant is booked based on input from, or computations also from, an AI. So both input and output from the AI is leveraging API technology. Let me show you kind of in code form also how this output to the API is happening. So this is a ChatGPT plugin, and it consists of three things. It consists of a manifest file, a JSON description for describing basically in a couple of attributes what this ChatGPT plugin is an expert in. Then you have the actual API specification describing what the API is doing. And then you have the API implementation. And those three things are enough for the AI model to be able to call APIs. And I think this could be very interesting for startups also to think about what kind of plugins in your own field of competence you could create in that way. So the AI can call you, actually. The AI can call your APIs that you're building. In that way, the AI acts as a platform. The AI is like the iOS or Android operating system. It's now an AI operating system. And you're creating plugins just in the same way as you would create apps for your phone. Yeah. The apps of the phone, they operate on top of the platform, and now your plugins or your APIs that you build in that way, they would operate on top of the AI as a platform. There's, of course, also something corresponding to an app store on the phone. There's this ChatGPT app store or plugin store where you can buy new plugins. where also your plugin could be hosted. All right, so these are these patterns. One's where the API is used to get data into the AI, and the other one is where the AI is calling APIs to change something in the real or digital world. All right. What am I going to close with here? Because I think we're approaching the end here. I think I'm going to show you, maybe it's here. So you're now in this hackathon and you're going to create something innovative. So, and then sometimes people tell me, oh, well, it would have been so nice if we would live 100 years ago when there are so many new things still to be invented. For example, the modern car, right, was not invented yet. So it would have been so nice as an inventor to be born back then 100 years ago, because there's all these things still to be explored and still to be found. And my typical answer to this, you will see here. There is actually several good times to be an innovator in history, right? So there's, for example, the first wave when we had the Industrial Revolution, the second wave where we had railways, the third wave where there was actually the invention of the modern car. Then we had the fourth wave with airplanes, and the fifth wave was when we had computers and the internet. And the sixth wave now is actually green technology and AI in my understanding. And you can also see that these cycles of innovation, they were always a little bit shorter. So 60 years all the way up here, you can see 60 years for the first wave, 55 years and so forth. So they expect this phase with sustainability and green technology and AI to last for 25 years. Let's see about that. What's also interesting is that you are standing on the shoulder of giants, right? So it's always just these waves built on top of each other. They kind of, you start by leveraging all these technologies that were already invented before, giving you much more possibilities to create new stuff, right? So as you see, we're here in the sixth wave with AI, IoT, robots and drones, and clean technology. And it's just about to start. And I think this is giving me some confidence to be that it's a good time to be an innovator right now. So one of these things that we have covered here are giving me also confidence that it's a good time, because what I see by talking to lots of companies around the field of APIs and in general how they approach technology is, and I talk to companies from basically all industries. So here you can see all 10, 11 different industries, sectors, and all of them are now in a phase where they are building APIs. They're building APIs in their specific fields. So for example, banks are doing that, telecommunication companies are doing that, real estate companies are doing that. So we have now basically a new infrastructure, you could call it an innovation infrastructure, that is built from APIs, because each of these sectors that you might want to have leverage, that you might want to leverage in your app, already has APIs, already has building blocks that you can readily compose. And I think this is a really good starting point for being an innovator. Yeah, these APIs make it so easy to build and innovate, and you can now connect these APIs with AI technology, right? So because we have looked at these two patterns for connecting APIs and AI, and this gives you another boost. So it's not only that you can reach all these different sectors and industries and specialists, but now you can connect it with AI technology. So I think very exciting times ahead. If you want to learn more about AI and APIs or any of the things we have talked about today, here is how you can reach me. I've put a QR code up. This QR code leads you to my LinkedIn profile. This is also how you can, it's the best way to follow up on things and discuss things. If you just connect on LinkedIn, and then we can message there. There's also my Twitter profile or X profile, and LinkedIn address. And yeah, I'm looking forward to discuss with you. Maybe you have some questions now that we can address. I think we have a couple of minutes left. If there are questions, please just open up.
Thanks, Matthias. I think the main challenge in the APIs, especially when dealing with these Gen API models, is that we as enterprises, we don't like our data to be exposed outside, and adopting local LLMs inside the company means that we lack the updates, we lack the developments that are done on these models. So how can we address, or balance between these two worlds?
Yes, you address a very valid point. I think now, when innovation is built on openness, then there is a possibility for innovation to run away and to develop very quickly because of this openness. And when you try to close things in, then you have to live with, so to say, with a little bit of slower pace of innovation, because there's much more things that you need to do yourself. You can't just give it to someone else who is doing it, because you want to keep it inside. So this is a trade-off decision that you have to make. I completely understand that maybe you don't want to send your data to, I don't know, another country, or you want to keep it in your country, or you want to keep it in your company even, right? But it's a trade-off decision, you have to make this consciously with all the pros and all the cons. And yeah, I think there's also several ways of dealing with this, because you can build this innovation infrastructure that I've been talking about also partially within your company. Right. So we have talked about this APIs as innovation infrastructure and all these APIs. And it would be so nice if everything would be open and you could use everything from everyone. Okay. But you can, for example, from a central place within your company, for example, as an enterprise architect, you can say, I trust certain types of APIs from outside. I don't trust all of them. I don't want my developers to send data to all of these APIs out there, but there are certain types of APIs which are okay, or certain types of APIs which are within our country or which are from our partners. And you can build a marketplace inside your company of your curated, hand-picked APIs that you trust. And then you give your developers access to this marketplace. And you tell them, well, this is the universe of APIs, our innovation infrastructure that we want to work with. And I think that would be kind of where you find yourself in the middle, where you are a little bit open, but in a very controlled way. You still give your developers the possibility to innovate quickly. One way of finding a compromise, but there are probably a lot more. And if you want to discuss this further, we can also take this offline, this discussion. I think it's very interesting.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Matthias.
I think we have one question in the chat as well. What are the most recommended learning sources for building APIs, especially for non-software background professionals? Maybe you could comment on that quickly as well.
Yes. If you want to learn about APIs, I run a website which is called api-university.com, where you can learn about APIs. There's courses, there's videos, there's books for people to learn more about the API economy, to learn how to leverage APIs, either by becoming an API provider and build your own APIs, or by just using APIs and what's the right way of using the APIs. So I will put it in the chat as well, so you can just click on it, api-university.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Good. So I hand back to the moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthias, so much for this super interesting hour. I'm sure I speak for all of us that we did learn a lot. So thank you for providing your time for this. And for everyone else, I want to say the biggest of thanks for joining us on these 5 intensive days full of knowledge and new information. Please watch all the recordings afterwards on the website. Contact me if you have any questions regarding the hackathon itself. You still haven't applied, but you want to, but you're unsure how. You don't have a team. Any questions? Now I can still help you for 8 days to come until the deadline on the 26th of September. So register, contact interesting participants on the website, contact me with any questions. I do want to say before I let you go that remember that even though the deadline for submissions is 26th of September, we will inform you if you've been invited or not selected to join the hackathon on the 27th and on the 28th. So only 2 days after the deadline at 11 a.m. KSA time, we will have an online Meet the Mentor session. So book that in your schedules already in case you're invited. And I hope to see all of you at our hackathon in Riyadh in just a few weeks. Wishing you a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, everyone. And see you again.
Thank you very much.
Can you send your email, please?
Yes, absolutely. We'll send it in the chat right away. Good point.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that. All right, there we go. My email, so you can contact me. Now, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening and talk to you again.